Everyone obsesses over morning routines: cold showers at 6, sunlight within 10 minutes, journaling before coffee. And none of that matters much if your brain never actually recovered the night before. The real battleground for sleep quality is not the first hour of your day, it is the last hour before you close your eyes. And the reason comes down to one chemical most people completely misunderstand: cortisol. You have probably heard cortisol called the stress hormone. That label is not wrong, but it is incomplete. Cortisol is better understood as your body's activation chemical. It is what keeps you sharp, focused, and ready to respond to threats during waking hours. That is exactly what you want during the day. But when the sun goes down and cortisol does not follow, something goes wrong. Your brain reads that lingering cortisol as a warning. It interprets the internal chemical environment as a sign that danger might still be present. And a brain that believes danger is nearby will not fully shut down. It hovers in a shallow, fragmented version of sleep, cycling through lighter stages and skipping the deep restorative phases your body desperately needs. This is the hidden reason so many people sleep for 7 or 8 hours and still drag themselves through the next day feeling unrested. Their brain never received permission to fully power down. It spent the night in a kind of low-grade surveillance mode, alert enough to respond, but never relaxed enough to truly rebuild. The encouraging part is that cortisol responds to very specific behavioral signals. Certain habits performed in that final window before sleep send a clear message to the nervous system that the day is over, the threats have passed, and deep recovery can begin. Here are 3 of the most effective ones. The first habit is reducing light exposure well before you actually get into bed. Your brain does not track time the way a clock does. It tracks light. Light intensity is the dominant input your circadian system uses to determine whether it is day or night. Specialized cells in the back of your eyes, called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells, detect the brightness and color temperature of your surroundings and relay that information directly to the hypothalamus, the brain region that governs your internal clock. When those cells detect bright or blue shifted light in the evening, they tell the hypothalamus that daytime conditions are still present. In response, your brain does 2 things. It holds cortisol at a moderately elevated level, and it delays the production of melatonin, the hormone that initiates the transition into sleep. You end up in a state of biological contradiction. Your conscious mind wants rest, but your neurochemistry is signaling alertness. This is not a willpower problem. It is a signaling problem. The fix is straightforward, but requires a shift in timing that most people never consider. Around 60 to 90 minutes before your intended sleep time, begin deliberately lowering the brightness around you. Switch off harsh overhead lighting. Use softer, warmer-toned lamps placed lower in the room. Reduce the brightness on any screens you are still using. If you can, avoid screens altogether during that final stretch. This graduated dimming mimics what the brain evolved to experience as the sun dropped below the horizon for hundreds of thousands of years. As perceived light decreases, the hypothalamus begins winding down cortisol output and clearing the way for melatonin to rise. You are not forcing anything. You are simply recreating the environmental conditions your biology already knows how to respond to. The transition feels natural because it is natural. The second habit targets something less obvious, but equally powerful: mental clutter. Your brain is fundamentally a threat detection and planning system. It evolved to keep unsolved problems active in awareness, so that solutions could be found before those problems became emergencies. During the day, this serves you well. At night, it becomes a trap. Every unfinished task, every unanswered email, every vague worry about tomorrow sits in your working memory like a browser tab that will not close. Your brain treats each one as a potential threat that has not been neutralized. And as long as those open items remain unresolved internally, the nervous system stays partially activated. Cortisol does not drop to its lowest levels because the brain believes there is still work to be done. It does not matter that you are lying in bed with the lights off. If the mental inventory is still running, your biology stays on guard. The countermeasure is a technique researchers call cognitive offloading. Before bed, take 2 to 3 minutes and write down whatever is still occupying your mind. It does not need to be organized. It does not need to be eloquent. A few bullet points on a notepad or a quick note on your phone is enough. The key is moving the information from inside your head to somewhere outside of it. What this does neurologically is remarkable. The act of externalizing a thought transfers it from active working memory to an external storage system. Your brain registers that the information now exists somewhere retrievable and no longer needs to be held internally. The mental grip loosens. Studies on pre-sleep worry and task management consistently show that even a brief written download of unfinished concerns reduces the time it takes to fall asleep and lowers markers of physiological stress. You are essentially telling your brain that nothing important will slip through the cracks, so it is safe to disengage. The unresolved items are not gone. They are just stored somewhere your brain trusts, and that trust is enough. The third habit works directly on the nervous system itself. Your autonomic nervous system operates in two primary modes. The sympathetic branch handles activation, alertness, and the fight or flight response. The parasympathetic branch handles recovery, digestion, and rest. Cortisol is closely tied to sympathetic dominance. When your body is locked in that activated state, cortisol remains elevated because the system expects to need energy and vigilance at any moment. To bring cortisol down efficiently, you need to manually shift the balance toward parasympathetic activity. And the most reliable way to do that without supplements or medication is through your breathing. Specifically, slow breathing with extended exhales. When you lengthen the exhale phase beyond the inhale, you activate the vagus nerve, one of the longest and most important nerves in the body. The vagus nerve runs from the brainstem through the chest and into the abdomen, and it serves as the primary communication line between the brain and the parasympathetic system. When vagal activity increases, the brain receives direct neurological input that the body is no longer in a state of emergency. A simple pattern works well. Breathe in through the nose for a count of 4. Breathe out slowly for a count of 6. Continue this cycle for 1 to 2 minutes. The extended exhale is the key component. It directly stimulates vagal tone, which triggers a cascade of calming effects throughout the body. Heart rate slows, blood pressure dips slightly, muscle tension releases across the shoulders, the jaw, the chest, and cortisol begins to fall. Within just a few rounds, you can feel the shift happening in real time. The body softens, the mind quiets, and the brain receives the physiological evidence it needs to conclude that the environment is safe enough to let go. Here is the deeper principle behind all three of these habits. Your brain does not fall asleep because you decide it should. It falls asleep when it accumulates enough evidence that staying alert is no longer necessary. That evidence comes from 3 channels. The light environment tells it whether the day is truly over. The mental landscape tells it whether there are still unresolved threats requiring attention. And the state of the nervous system tells it whether the body is still braced for action or has shifted into recovery. When all 3 channels consistently signal safety, cortisol drops to its nighttime baseline, and your brain transitions into the deep, restorative stages of sleep that actually leave you feeling recovered in the morning. You do not need to wrestle your body into rest. You do not need a complicated supplement stack or a perfectly optimized sleep environment. You just need to stop sending your brain signals that keep it awake. Dim the lights, clear the mental clutter, slow the breathing. Let your biology do what it already knows how to do. If this changed how you think about sleep, subscribe to the channel for more like this.